Welcome back to Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. The last time, some pretty heavy stuff happened. Yeah, if you haven't watched the last part, go and watch the end of it. It's very, very significant. So let's go to Chapter 20. This music really doesn't fit what just happened. The Kingdom of Dayan lies on the northernmost edge of Tellius. Its coastline is bathed in the icy currents of the Northern Sea, and frigid winds howl inland with terrible ferocity. As a result, Dayan winters are raw and brutal. Ice and snow scour the land, leaving frozen scars in their wake. Through these blizzards, General Ike and the Crimean army press ever forward. Benyon's Imperial Senate may have lent Crimea troops, but even they doubt that the army can successfully fight off Dayan. They are jerks though, so that doesn't really matter. Yet somehow, Ike and company defy all odds and capture victory after victory. Embracing both Princess Alincia's dream of a liberated Crimea and the tragic history of his parents, Ike marches in grim silence. Again, really doesn't fit the music that's currently playing. There are actually two other, like, world map themes in this game, and either of them would have fit that moment more than this one. So, finally, Soren's telling Ike about his suspicions. I feel like Soren already knows. Ike should probably mention Volk should be cleared from suspicion at this point. I really can't blame Ike for being like this, but it's kind of interesting. This is a bit of a role reversal of what was happening back in Benyon. Now Ike is the one who's out of it, and Soren is the one who's trying to keep everything together. This is actually a bit of an interesting line. Normally a line like this would be really funny, but in light of the reason why Ike wasn't sleeping, yeah, it just goes to show, like, sometimes, I mean, there are times for joking, but now isn't one of them. Now really isn't one of them. Yeah, we just learned how bad it is for the medallion to be gone, and Titania's reaction there implies Grail told her what it was. Which would make sense. Now's probably not the best time to tell her that that medallion has an evil god imprisoned in it. We have to find that quickly, or else who knows what will happen. We'd heard Shiharam's name mentioned before, but we're finally meeting him here. This is another great way to build suspense here. It's kind of like Chapter 14, where they don't fully tell you exactly what the Apostle was ordering you to do until you get to the chapter. Here, Shiharam's been clearly ordered to do something very bad that he's really against, but we don't know what that is just yet, and we won't find out until we begin the chapter. Well, admittedly, that last idiot did challenge Stefan to single combat, so he kinda brought it on himself. And here's the point where if you didn't have enough reasons to hate PETRINE more, you definitely will now. So here's that unit from the Bednion Holy Guard that defected to Dayan. That's the one that Tanith was talking about earlier. 18 years is a pretty long time to be in service to one country, though. They really should get respect for that. Seriously, PETRINE. You are not making yourself any less killable right now. Which makes me really angry because we're actually not going to be fighting her for a bit longer. Just, seriously, they just keep giving you more reasons to hate her. Once we find out more about this guy, this conversation gets retroactively even worse. Because I don't know if they've actually mentioned earlier who he really is, but you might be able to figure it out. In fact, it wasn't directly stated, but it was pretty obvious from that base conversation with Jill in the last chapter. This is Jill's father. Again, not explaining exactly what it is yet. Winning the war but losing the trust of your citizens is never a good plan. And on that note, we cut to the base, so suspense time. Soren actually has a different bit of dialogue here for the normal report, though. I'm really surprised Nephany got MVP there, but yeah, 70,000 gold! 70,000 gold! And you already had more than enough to last you until the end of the game. This is just overkill. I don't know why they even do this, but that's just completely insane. Now I'm going to go for info first, because there's actually a pretty important conversation here. Firstly though, let's talk to Rayson. Yeah, Ike happens to know someone who might know what's going on, but he doesn't quite have the courage to ask him directly. So it's interesting, because Ike's normally very blunt about most things, but it makes sense. He's very shaken given what happened last time. And Rayson can sense that. Herons have a lot of abilities to make up for their inability to fight, don't they? Of course, here's a hand wave to make sure they don't just read the enemy's minds and instantly win any battle. Obviously, when there's a war going on, it's insanely hard to focus on anything like that. Here we also get introduced to something that will become pretty important later on. Herons really, really don't like chaos. Well, that is kind of true. And yes, Bird Clan's plural, because I feel like even Nasala would be after Ike if anything bad happened to Rayson. And here's another one of those character who's clearly awesome is like, oh no, I'm such a bird and I'm so useless. That's completely true, which is why you shouldn't refuse him back in Chapter 18. Yes, yes, you are. You are of massive, massive use to us. Yeah, meanwhile, Ike is still pretty bothered by that whole thing. Someday we'll be able to find the truth out of Rayson, but might be a while yet. And woman. Who is this woman? Oh, we remember you. You appeared in a village back in chapter 14. Anyone with a name and a unique design who appears in a village is usually recruitable later. Kinda weird that it took Khalil this long to join. She's actually not exaggerating all that much. Yeah, we've already got a lot, but Khalil is definitely... she's a little unique among mages. Oh, great. That's the one weakness of Khalil, is that she's a knife sage, so... sadly, every pre-promoted sage you get in this game is a knife sage, not a staff sage, so no free staff bots for you. This line's also great. Khalil actually is a really good character in general. I like Ike's response to this. You actually never have to pay her though, so this is just gameplay and story segregation here. Some ways she's kind of what you'd get if you cross Luke with La Rachel. Or La Rochelle is how you pronounce it according to heroes. Let's say yes. Because obviously I'm recruiting everyone, and really you have no reason to say no. Even if you're not using her, she comes with some pretty good items. And with that we end the base conversation, so yeah, Khalil's pretty great. And as for how she is in combat, she actually has some pretty good starting stats, and weapon ranks. Khalil is another very good pre-promote. I told you Devdin was the exception. While her base stats aren't as good as Soren or Ileana's are likely to be at this point, they are definitely enough for her to hold her own at this point in the game, and they're very solid overall. Her growths are also solid. She tends to average around the same as Tormod. She also comes with B ranks in Fire, Thunder, and Wind, and has the strength to use most powerful tomes without penalty. A big asset of hers is the ability to use long-range tomes right from the start, and she comes with one, Meteor. She can also use the Bolting tome you will have picked up back in chapter 16. So if you have a filler deployment slot and you want a secondary magic user, Khalil makes great use of that. And if you want a magic user who doesn't require investment, Khalil's also great. Her main weakness is the fact that she's a knife sage, not a staff sage, so she can't heal. And while she is one of the better sages in the game at using knives, that's really not saying much. Khalil is also the first character we get who has access to the Nile skill. This negates the effects of any combat-related skills the enemy has. While this sounds good, in practice it takes up a lot of capacity and far too few enemies have skills to make it really worth it. Aside from a couple of basic enemies in the final chapter, the only enemies you'll be seeing with skills are bosses, and for the most part their skills aren't all that dangerous. I mean, if I could somehow have this skill and still have Ether for the Black Knight battle, that'd be amazing, but he doesn't have the capacity for that. In general, Nile is not that helpful in Path of Radiance. In Radiant Dawn, on the other hand, you'll want to remember that Khalil has this, because it's going to be very, very important. Also, she comes with a Meteor Tome. Now, this is the reason why I wanted Soren to get a C rank in Fire Magic before Chapter 22, because he can use this if he has a C rank. Khalil can also use that Bolting Tome that we got, so I might as well give that to her, seeing as no one else I have can use that right now. Or I could try arm-scrolling Soren up to a C in Thunder. Bolting has slightly worse accuracy, but a few more points of might and a crit rate. Has a lot of weight, though. But anyway, Khalil actually makes a pretty good secondary sage, even though, or even a primary sage. So, as you can see, a Soren of roughly the same level is a bit better than her in terms of magic, skill, speed, and resistance. However, Khalil has better strength, and her base stats are really not that bad. She's actually quite good to use. Again, her one weakness is being a knife sage, which obviously you don't want. So, do we have any support we can do here? Soren and Stefan, actually, that one is important. Also this one. I'm going to be making a save here, and I will be showing this support eventually, I'll be doing that in a bonus video. And Mist is, again, she's probably fine. Tanith and Rayson have a support. You know what, I might as well do this one. Rayson actually has access to 2 Earth supports, so he can get pretty good evasion if you want him to. Well, yeah, it wouldn't, do her well to have Rayson dying right after she did that big apology. Rayson, you really can't. Being raised by hawks will mostly raised by hawks will kind of do that. It's probably where Rayson got most of his personality from. You know, I haven't actually seen Rayson and Tormod supports. I should probably look those up sometime. Now, Stefan and Soren. This one, like I said, actually is pretty interesting, and it's another reason why I'm using Stefan. Also, some people have pointed this out, but Stefan is really, really freaking tall. That probably has something to do with this. That's a pretty short support conversation, and thankfully it hasn't spoiled a major reveal about Soren just yet. It's implying something though, and that'll all come out in Ike and Soren's A support, which hopefully we should be getting in not too long. Right, now, I don't think we really have any more skills to assign. I do have a whole bunch of bonus experience, which means, boy, this is going to be, well, firstly, let me just level up Nephany to 7. We are getting more and more bonus experience out of every chapter, but to compensate, everyone takes more bonus experience to level up now, so it's still... We'll still have to be careful how much bonus experience we use. I might want to start stockpiling some. Titania really wants to use a magic axe, apparently. As for everyone else, I think we're all fine. No, I can just give her one heal of the staff and that'll be fine. Jill's fine, and I feel really bad for doing this, but... I'm going to try and get Ike up to level 7, and I'll be restarting if he doesn't gain speed, because seriously. Okay, that's good. You know, maybe I should say I'll be restarting if he doesn't gain speed more often, because usually when I say that, I don't end up needing to restart. Exactly. I haven't actually needed to restart every time I've said that, so let's do that more often, shall we? So 19 speed is still not great for this point, but as you can see, Ike's main offensive stats are starting to get pretty good. In fact, he only needs a few more points of defense to cap it. Now, I have way too much money. I want to make a very expensive forge weapon, just because we have way too much money. For now, let me just check something. Mist is still, she's still at a D rank. And I want to save that Sonic Sword for Mist eventually. And might as well give that back to Ike, because he's the only one who can use it. But I'm thinking I haven't actually made a forged sword yet. So let's do this. And no reason not to max out everything. Except weight, because we don't really need that. Might as well max out the hit rate too. I do not care about any monetary costs at all. Alright, again, Stefan is probably fine at weapons. Also, he's camp skill, so... yeah, that happened pretty quickly. Sauron, I think, is also mostly final weapons for now. I might as well sell some of the low-use axes that I have left, or like the swords, so yeah, I might want to do a little bit of cleanup here. I've already got enough hand axes, it seems like. Speaking of hand axes, Jill, why are you not... Oh, actually, you are at a D rank in axes now. And I don't even need that because you can use steel axes with an E. I completely forgot about that. You've got enough high hit weapons as it is. You can go ahead and take a... Actually, though, the pole axe might not be a bad idea. But, you know, let's go ahead and have you take a steel axe. And Titania needs another steel axe. Let's grab one of those for you. And I think Gatry's final weapons for now too. Mist is mostly fine. Ika's final weapons. Nephany is... Well, we need to get rid of that coin. I've got quite a few coins so far. Like I said, they're useless in this game, but they do transfer over to Radiant Dawn. This time, though, Jill is getting the full guard. Because I'll be needing that in the chapter. I think you'll keep the Night Ring for now. Alright, we actually have 2 Lagoon Stones. Might as well give one of those to Rayson, because he may need that. And I think that should be everything that I want to do. So, let's move out. I have a pretty good idea who the culprit may be. You could say that. It's... Seriously, Ike, it's only gonna be so long before, you'll have to confide in this to your friends. They really should know this. That would be the whole floodgate thing that we'd heard about. And once again, seriously, why does this line keep coming up? Why is everyone Felicia? Thankfully, we won't have to jump through as many hoops to close the floodgates as we did in Echoes. Yeah, we have the best scout in the entire world on our side. This should be easy. Ike, you haven't already realized how good his eyes are? I like this big panning shot here. Here is the Talriga region. And Shiharam is here. We know what that means. And he's... Well, here's the thing. This game effectively has 2 Camus archetypes. He's one of them. He just wants to end this fight quickly. He wants minimal damage. It's... Again, it's really sad. Oh, and by the way, this chapter is actually timed. We have to defeat the boss and stop the floodgates before everything becomes too flooded to continue. However, the time limit is so stupidly generous that I have no idea how you could ever lose without intentionally trying. So, I'm actually going to be still on the map here. I'll talk about the map itself in the next part, but first I need to explain something. Here is Shiharam. He is Jill's father. Also has the stun skill, but that's only a skill over 2% chance of activating, and even if it does activate, you can still counterattack him, you just can't move, so it's really... It's not a very useful skill. But, anyway, his tomahawk is pretty strong. And there's a pretty brutal trap in place for players who think he might be recruitable. If Jill does not have an A support with Mist in this chapter, whatever you do not have Jill talk to Shiharum. Because you'll get the exact opposite result of what you're hoping for. It's a rare moment in the series, and I'm going to do an entire bonus video covering all the possible outcomes of this situation. This is the map that the game recommends you don't bring Jill for. You can still use her if you want, you just have to make sure she does not talk to her father unless she has an A support with Mist. That's the one thing that can stop this from happening. So, I'll see you for the actual chapter next time, and there will be tears.